way? Like, like your expectations of who you were going to be dating? Like you were saying earlier that you got a lot of attention that you maybe weren't expecting.
It was very different going from dating somebody like as being somebody who was like morbidly obese, like super morbidly obese, to somebody who's like almost like not overweight with their BMI, right? Like I have to be 189 pounds. And like I said, I was 180 pounds in 8th grade. So like I was 14 the last time I saw under 190. And I'm 41. So, you know, I've got the dad bod going on for sure.
I mean, you're trim. You've got a good physique. So.
I mean, I appreciate that. Like, but yeah, like it was really interesting to me to see like not having hair. I feel like filters out like a lot of people from my life, right? I've noticed that like, you know, it's not like some people don't think that's the most attractive thing. Like,
interesting.
They want a man with hair. But like being fat was also like a superficial like people weeder outer. Do you know? Does that make sense? Like so, yes, it opened the floodgates more. Like I had a lot more interest from people, but I found that the people that were interested, like I can tell you, like I dated girls who like would see like old pictures of me and be like, I would have never looked twice at you, and like been like super upfront and open about that. Like as much as
did that hurt your like? Did that kind of like hurt your feelings, or were you just like, or was it just interesting?
It's not that it hurt my feelings, but I think it spoke to me about their character, right? Like who I am hasn't changed from when I was 340 pounds to now that I'm 225, right? Like I'm still the same person, right? Like I manifest to people differently because I'm less overweight, but yeah. So I mean, it made I feel like it made the work harder for me to like weed through people, but yeah, I don't know. It was interesting. It was a good experience.
Yeah, I don't know how. I've always been pretty much the same, so I don't know how that would be. I think for me, the only thing I can really relate to is as I get older, like I still will try to like look. I'm like, oh, this guy's hot, and I have to tell myself, Rhonda, he's probably 25. Stop.
Yeah, like, I had this conversation with Tiffany last night. Like, she will not date anybody younger than her. Like, that's like she's learned. I guess maybe from experiences. Like, nope.
Yeah.
And like for me, like I like have a hard time. Like I've been on a few dates with women who are older than me. Like I've dated like I think I was 38, and I went out with like this. I made out with this chick who was like 50, right? Like total cougar, and I didn't think much of it, but like yeah, when I look back, like the majority of my matches and people I've gone out with and people I've dated like seriously, like everybody's younger than me, and I don't really know. Maybe that's just like the gender gap. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because I usually just date people younger than me, and I
really, you're not into
it's younger. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing.
It's a complex subject for sure.
It is a complex subject because it's like you know, I feel like the older you get, attraction is. To me, it's funny. This is one of the funny things I've learned about being older and dating. And I think this is what it boils down to, what I was just talking about and what we were just talking about, is that the things that you look for when you're older are different than the things that you look for when you're younger, right?
I think priorities definitely shift, for sure.
They definitely shift. But I feel like mine have gotten more immature. I feel like I'm getting more immature. I'm like, but are they really good looking? What will they look like naked?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of a weirdo like that. Like most of my friends are like, Rhonda, you need to grow up. And I'm like, I know, but I can't. So it's hard. I mean, you know, but on the other hand, like we were talking about, I also have kids and I have to be realistic about, while I'm also looking for that, this is why I'm single, everybody, just so you know, if you are ever questioning, oh, she seems interesting, and why is she single? This is why, because I'm insane. While I'm looking,
because you're insane.
While I'm looking for that, I'm also really set on somebody who is not a project. I cannot handle anybody who takes too much work. And obviously younger people are still finding themselves typically, so that does not work. But it's very difficult to find a relationship with anybody in general, much less somebody who's put together.
Yeah, who has their shit together in some solid ways. I understand.
So did you find that when you were dating, did you find that a lot of, like, I don't know about your situation now, and I don't even have to ask about it, but did you find that a lot of women were looking for you to be a provider for them? Did you find that a lot of women were wanting you to, like, they were looking at you like, what do you make? How much money do you make? Like, are you going to be able to take care of me? What if we move in? You know, like, tell me about that as a guy's perspective, because I love the guy's perspective on the money scenario.
So I'm a little bit old school. Like I'll open car doors. Like I will assume that I'm gonna be the one that pays. Like if we go out, right? Like I feel like that's part of my gender role to play. My current girlfriend Tiffany gave me a lot of shit because like I didn't like initiate any type of like kissing or like major physical affection until we'd been out like 3 times, and like she thought I just wasn't like into her, and like.
Got it. She's like, how can I get this guy to try and put a move on me?
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about female privilege, and she gets pissed. Yeah. Like how like girls get to like typically sit back and be the ones that are on the receiving end of affection being initiated, and like at least initially, right? Like it's up to guys to break the ice in that way. But as far as like your provider question, so like the girl that I dated when I first came out here, or I'd been dating when I moved out here, and then we moved in together a couple months after I came out here. The main reason we moved in together is because she was getting evicted and she didn't have a job, and she was getting support from her ex, but that's all that she was subsisting on. And so you know, all of her kids were school age, and during COVID, like I had to work from home. She didn't have a job, and like so like it kind of forced mental health issues, and like how well do you really get along in your relationship?
Right.
Like
because you were just home all the time.
All the time, always up in each other's business, and so yeah, in a lot of ways, I do feel like I supported her financially. I mean, like I think I asked her to pay like 1/3 of the rent, maybe, or like 1/3 of the bills, and that really became a source of like resentment for my kids. That like. This chick is using you, Dad. Like,
yeah, because they're old enough to understand some of that. They're old enough to see some of that. Like, what do you mean she doesn't have to do this? Or what do you mean she's like just moving in already? Or
and like I had 2 cars. Like I had an SUV that I moved out here, and I had my daily driver, and like I let her drive my car. Like she wrecked her car and she couldn't get a new one. She didn't have a job, and like. So I feel like I enabled a lot of bad behavior, and I realized that like I kind of stunted her growth. Like. In like the universe kind of forcing the issue with her of, hey, you need to do something to get out of your shell, and you're only going to get support for a limited amount of time, and the support you get is pretty limited. Like, you got to take care of yourself. And I think that's what eventually broke us, was that difference in where we were at in life.
I feel like that that traditional role doesn't work as well anymore. I feel like, don't you feel like we have created more expectations of each other? I think especially after our first marriage. You know, like after you have that initial like, we're 22 and we're gonna get married and have kids, and I'm gonna do laundry.
You're my
cook,
soulmate.
and after that bubble bursts, which for most of us it does, then you're stuck in 2021 now. And I feel like some of those traditional roles and thoughts are gone. We don't, you know, I feel like more people date now for maybe companionship, or to be a best friend, or to find an equal in their partnership. It's not just like, and not everybody. There's a little bit of everything, obviously. But I believe that would, for a lot of people, cause resentment if that person's not coming to the table.
Well, now I'm in the opposite position. Like, my girlfriend just got hired to be the CFO of a cannabis company.
Okay. So she's an achiever.
It's awesome. Yeah, and she makes more money than I do now, and like it's great. Like I'm not the one that like she took me out to like seafood last night. We had crab legs last night, and she's like, I want to pay, and I was like, yes, you do that. It's awesome. And it's new for me, right? And but it's great. Like I feel like that adds such an extra layer of compatibility that like we're in the same place with our careers, or similar places with our career goals and advancement and things like that. So
I think that is really important. I think that I've known girls that are in it for the money, and like I said, like
the financial safety net.
Yeah,
like they want to be taken care of.
They'll only find a guy that makes a lot of money because they want to be taken care of, and that is not me. But I'm not going to judge that relationship. If that works and the guy likes that role, then so be it. I just think that's fewer and far between nowadays. I think more people, the older we get, we want to find somebody who can go out with your partner and be like, hey, you get it this time, or I'll get it this time, or I don't think it always, I don't know. I think it makes for a longer term I think it makes a relationship stronger when you can be that way, rather than one person's always relying on the other.
I think there's less possibility for resentment as well, right? Like there's just the opportunities for that just don't there's a lot of religious it's like 5:40. There's like, I feel like going back to the topic of religion, there's a lot of implications in that for dating, especially in Arizona, because there are so many Mormons and there are so many young people leaving the Mormon church. Like if you're a Mormon and that's your tribe, like you're immediately networked in no matter where you go in terms of being able to date. But if you're an ex-Mormon, there's also like so much of that, especially in the communities that have high Mormon concentrations. You're going to find somebody who was, also formerly of that tribe, and it gives you a lot in common, I feel like.
And that's kind of why I asked you about it, because I do feel like people who were really inundated in religious life, or they themselves were really religious or came from a really religious background, they do tend to have a commonality. Like they do tend to have like a similar mindset. Like, I know where you're coming from,
We've got shared trauma. I think is what it comes down to, right? Like, I mean, it would be very easy for you to relate to somebody else who was raised, observant Baptist, right? I mean, like because you probably did a lot of the same things as a kid. But I feel like this is like Tiffany has nothing to do with Mormonism, and so like that's a departure for me. Like I've never been in this long of a relationship with somebody that like I didn't have that shared like faith or culture background.
What kind of background does she come from?
I think she was raised non-denominational Christian. Like her parents forced her to get baptized when she was a kid, and she didn't really want to. And now they're a lot more. I don't know. Maybe they were always religious. I don't really know. But she's not. She's not like at all. Like not Christian, not Western religion, not
Does she? Is she curious about like your Mormon upbringing? Because it's different for people who weren't raised like that.
So like
I like have questions. Like I have lots of friends who are Mormon. I'm like, tell me about that. What did you do for that?
Absolutely. Like so like I had cousins come and visit, and like afterwards she confessed that like because she's met multiple members of my extended family, she's always checking for like the magic underwear. You know what I mean? Like was that person wearing like the
Jesus?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what because I work in the medical field, and
you see that all the time.
Yeah, I mean my job specifically is to be under people's breasts. That's literally like my joke is I live under the mammies. Like this is where my whole area of expertise, right in here.
Everybody loves boobs though, so it's not a big deal.
But my patients are like 80, so they're not like. I mean, I guess you could look if you wanted to, but anyhow, like when I'll have people get undressed, and then they'll still have those undergarments on. I'm like,
no, you got to take it off, bro.
I can't scan through your undergarment.
Yeah.
I understand it's part of who you are.
Maybe they wanted to protect them from the x-rays. I don't know.
I don't know. But I have to do it all the time. Nope, those have to come off too. Everything, all of it. Or like I used to do a lot of vascular, and I have to be like right here. And then the guys would come in and they're like this long, and I'd be like, how do you want me to get up there? You got to take that off too. So, sorry, little. It is interesting. Like I think that's anytime any religion has a lot of traditions, strong traditions like that. I think it's interesting to people who didn't come from that. So does she so I'm sorry, you were telling a story and I totally interrupted you.
No. It's been interesting to compare experiences dating people. Like when I date people that have been raised Mormon or ex-Mormon, I can almost know for certain that there's also going to be other parts of our lives that will still align. Right. So like, for example, it's really important for me to have like a sit down dinner every day with my kids. It's the exception to the rule when we do not eat a hot dinner together as a family, maybe a couple nights a week, we won't. And I found that, dating people from that same background as me, like that's also very common with them. And you were talking about like, women that are looking for like to have their like lunch ticket punched or whatever, women who are looking for a man to be that provider and play that supporting role. I feel like that's also more common coming from a religious background. I feel like people who are more conservative in their religious upbringings, that gender, that gender gap really does exist in the roles. Yes, that a lot of them, have aspired and have lived out, being stay-at-home moms, right? Domestic engineering, right? That's been their focus in life. And like my most recent ex, that was her role. She never went to school. She never had to work outside the home. I mean, but then when she was faced with the prospect of living her own life after divorce, I mean, like she was fucked.
My sister was the same.
And like it's totally a product of the culture that we were raised in, right? And I don't know, like I felt awful for her because of that, and I almost felt like,
probably because of your religious background, that you were very empathetic to her scenario because you knew where it was coming from.
Yeah, like my first wife was a stay-at-home mom. Like she she stopped working outside the home like when she got put on bed rest pregnant with our first kid, right? And so like I kind of fell back into that same rhythm,
right?
You know what I mean?
Of being a caretaker, so you kind of immediately were like, she needs help. I'm here for it. This is the role. This is the male.
You talk about taking on projects, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a very common project I think that men take on.
And to be fair, just for every woman that I know that will take a free meal and is looking for somebody to care for them.
How does it cut the other way? I want to hear.
I know plenty of guys that want to care for somebody and will do that. Because the perks are worth it? Well, because they, in some ways, they are looking to be the superhero of the relationship. They want to be the one that, maybe the superhero isn't the right word, but they're looking to fulfill that role in themselves of, I am the man, and I'm the provider. I'm going to provide for my family. I'm going to care for her, and she'll respect me because I care for her and take care of everything. And that's not always how it works out.
I always wonder, like, who is like,
but a lot of guys
up.
do that.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of people that do that are doing that because they think that their wife is so much more attractive, or their girlfriend is so much more attractive to them, right? Like, I could never land a girl like this, but
so I want to take care of her.
I'm going to lock it in by being a sugar daddy.
Sure. Yeah. I'm certain that happens all the time. I mean, working in the field I do, of working in healthcare, I know lots of doctors who will joke about, oh, their wife is really hot.
Yeah.
And you're like...
And they have a hot wife because they're a doctor, yeah.
And you know the role. They know the role. They know their role. The doctors know their role. And I'm not just pointing the finger at doctors, I'm just saying in general.
Yeah.
I think it's
common.
The trophy wife, And how do you get the trophy wife? Usually because you're able to care for the trophy wife.
You have to be not ugly. You have to make a lot of money.
You don't have to be not ugly.
You have to be not fat.
Not even. You just have to make money. They want to be cared for. Those are the women that want to be cared for, and they're okay with that as long as they're getting that. Like they're checking, they have a list of boxes to check off.
It's how they strike their balance.
Yeah. It's like we all do. We all have different boxes to check off. Their boxes might just check off a little differently than mine, or from yours. You would rather have more of a partnership rather than, or from what I'm getting, rather than, or maybe whatever.
I've always tried to be open to like really anything. I've tried to be really open-minded and not judgmental and not not excluding people who could be like hidden gems in my life. So
so you're open to anything. Like you were open to being the caretaker. You were open to more of an equal partnership, and like you said, kind of where it sounds like you are now, where she even makes just like a little bit more than you, but that's okay because you guys are fairly equal playing field.
Yeah, like I mean, like we started dating, like she was making like less than me at a job, and like I'm like stoked for her that she got this like big new job and she's making more money than me.
Yeah,
and
that's
like
exciting.
Yeah, I think I'm fully supportive of it, and it's a different experience. Like I've never been involved with somebody who makes as much or more money than I do.
It sounds like from your last experiences, you were the caretaker in all the relationships.
Like my second wife, she like, I don't know, she did pretty decent. I think she was making like 60 grand, 70 grand a year, right? I mean, like a decent like salary, right? Yeah, like that's respectable for sure. But yeah, I mean, like no, I mean, like not.
But you're not stuck on it. Like you don't have to you're not chained to any of those definable roles.
I mean, like I'm no longer in the dating pool, so it's difficult for me to like put that hat on again. But yeah, I mean, like I tried to be open-minded to like people from all different walks of life, right? Like I was in like a group therapy, like DBT. Are you familiar with DBT? Anyways, look it up. It's cool. Okay. Dialectic behavioral therapy, group therapy. And there's a girl there way younger than me, but in a wheelchair. And like I remember getting like a match with a girl on one of the services in a wheelchair, and like we never ended up like really connecting or whatever, but like I was like super stoked to be able to talk to my friend Jess about like, hey, like how do I need to like not fuck this up, like taking this chick out that's in a wheelchair, like what do I need to do? You know,
what sort of social thing should I avoid?
Yeah, like
to be offensive?
How do I not put my foot in my mouth? Like how do I be a gentleman? You know what I mean? Like what do you appreciate as somebody, you know? But yeah, like I've gone out with chicks like of different ethnicity, hair color, heights, weights. And
you don't want to, you're not looking for a certain box.
I mean, like I have like preferences, right?
Sure,
you know, but I think
it's ridiculous for people to not believe that they have a preference. Like I date guys from any race. It doesn't matter to me, but I have other preferences.
Yeah, like
as I mentioned.
I mean, I think it's hard for us to control who we're attracted to and how we're attracted to somebody. But aside from that, I mean, chemistry, being able to communicate well is important to me, and I feel like dating, you kind of have to come into your own as to who you are and what you believe and what is like how you want to convey yourself to the people that are sitting across the table from you, right? And how do you want to present, and like what type of mask are you going to wear? Everybody wears a mask. I feel like as they date initially and they go through that honeymoon phase,
you don't want to throw it all out there right away.
Right. You know,
because that's just odd.
Yeah.
When people do, like, have you dated somebody before that does that, where they're just like, this is what I want in life, and this is what I want to do, and it's kind of like
super unfiltered, like no, like I feel like that's a little bit like social maturity lacking. I don't know, like
I get very, I tend to be a little bit slower because I want to see what's, I don't know. I don't know if it's like, I don't know. I just tend to move a little bit slower, and I don't, like I had one guy, we went on a second date and he's like, that's it. I want you to get off your dating sites. We're a thing now. I want you to just be mine. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna need you to pump the brakes.
That's a good conversation to have though. I mean, because like that's a really, I've talked to my therapist about that so many times, like managing expectations surrounding how do we transition from we're both talking to, you know, 3, 5, 10, 20 other members of the opposite sex in these dating apps, we're seeing other people. How do we transition away from to like I call them DTRs, like discuss the relationship. But like I feel like that's important. Like if you don't have good communication, it's really easy to get your feelings hurt. You know what I mean? Like I'm busy that night. Well, why? Well, like none of your business. Like, oh. We're
not on that level where I have to tell you. Yeah. I think that is important. I mean, communication is really what it boils down to for everything. And I mean, some people you're gonna maybe have good communication with, that doesn't mean you want to date them, and then that moves into a whole different category that we don't even have time to get into of how to communicate that. It's like a whole different show that I have. Yeah, anyhow, I'm going to wrap it up just because I want to...
Yeah, we've got 10 minutes so close.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
You did not disappoint. I knew that you would be full. I knew. I'm really good at reading people. I'm like, I think I need to talk to this guy. I feel like he's going to have some good insight and things to say. And I think you sound like like you're a very well-rounded person. Like you've had some unique experiences that
thanks.
Have made you thoughtful and, trying to think of the words I want to use. That I don't know what I'm saying.
It's okay to say that I've seen some shit. I mean, like for sure. Like I've
well, you know what I mean. Like some people just have not had enough diversity in their life to really be thoughtful to others. Some people have not to be empathetic to others, to really understand their own journey and maybe understand other people's journeys. And it sounds to me like you've had enough life experiences and enough relationship experiences where you kind of get it, and you're willing to step back and just allow things to be kind of what they are sometimes. And not everybody does that. Not everybody can do that.
It's really hard going with the flow, and it's really hard detaching yourself from,
it really is.
You know, what you really feel like you want to see happen or what should happen. You know what I mean? For optimal circumstances in your life. To control
the disappointment and recognize that it's not always going to go your way. And
my favorite Buddhist philosophy is shit happens, right? It's the best. It's like the best way to live your life.
It does, and then you have to just accept it and move on. And my whole thing is, somebody said to me a long time ago, and it always stuck, is always have Plan B in your back pocket. Like, you got to keep moving. Like, okay, well, that's okay if that happened, because my one of my little, I have a little book of my daily devotional, I call it.
Okay.
And it's like the secret, little book, things from the secret, the
Yeah, like the movie The Secret, like
Yeah.
manifesting stuff to
Yeah,
the universe. Yeah.
And it basically was just talking about how you have to change the negatives into the positives, which was sometimes, those little things, they get you right when you need it. It's been a very difficult couple weeks. And so sometimes you have to do that. And it sounds like you kind of learned to kind of take your experiences that you had that maybe weren't so positive at the time, but learn from them and move on and create a better positive life environment for your kids.
You got to do the best with what you're given to work with.
Yeah.
And that's all you can really expect, I think.
Yeah. It's hard to learn that lesson, though. Not everybody gets that. Not everybody understands that.
It's a process for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
And I appreciate it. And maybe we'll talk again. You never know.
Yeah, it sounds great. Thanks, Rhonda.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome.